My wife used our joint savings to get pregnant with another man's baby. She'd betrayed me before with smaller lies, but this time she was reborn as someone I didn't recognize, someone who could steal our future to build her fantasy with him. The receipt fell out of our shared laptop like a confession I never asked to hear. Fertility Solutions. Center, $12,847. Payment date, 3 weeks ago. My hands trembled as I read the patient name, Emma Richardson, my wife of 6 years. But the treatment wasn't for us. We'd never discussed IVF. We'd never even talked about having kids seriously. The hum of our refrigerator filled the silence as I sat in our kitchen, staring at this piece of paper that demolished everything I thought I knew. My coffee had gone cold an hour ago, but I couldn't move. Couldn't process what this meant. David? Emma's voice floated down from upstairs. Did you find the grocery list? I found something all right. When she appeared in the doorway, still in her silk robe, her face went white. Not the kind of white you get from surprise, the kind you get from being caught. We need to talk, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. She glanced at the laptop, at the receipt in my hand, and something shifted in her expression. The guilt vanished, replaced by something harder, defiant. I was going to tell you, she said, moving to pour herself coffee like this was a normal Tuesday morning conversation. Tell me what, exactly? The ceramic mug clinked against the marble countertop as she set it down. I'm pregnant, David. 8 weeks. My chest tightened. For a split second, joy tried to break through the confusion. Then reality crashed back. With Marcus's baby. She flinched at the name, but nodded. We've been trying for 8 months. The IVF finally worked. 8 months. While I was working overtime to save for the house renovations she wanted, she was using our money to get pregnant with her coworker. The betrayal hit me in waves. The lying, the planning, the calculating intimacy of it all. How long? I managed. David, how long have you been sleeping with him? She wrapped the robe tighter around herself, a gesture I used to find endearing. Now it just looked like armor. A year, maybe a little more. My knuckles went white as I gripped the countertop. The marble felt cold and unforgiving under my hands, like everything else in this moment. I never meant for it to happen, she continued, tears starting to form. But I fell in love with him. Real love, not whatever this is. Whatever this is. 6 years of marriage reduced to whatever this is. So why didn't you just leave? I asked. Her tears came faster now, but they felt performative, calculated. Because I love you too, David. Just differently. And this is still our house, our marriage. I can't just throw that away. But you can throw away our money on another man's baby? I need your support right now. I'm scared and pregnant, and you're 6 months along. The math was simple. The receipt showed payment for a procedure that happened after conception. What was the money really for? Her face crumpled, but this time the emotion looked real, desperate. Marcus lost his job 3 months ago. He couldn't help with the medical bills, and his insurance doesn't cover certain things. Couples therapy for us, fertility counseling, prenatal vitamins, the good ones. The refrigerator hummed louder, or maybe my hearing had sharpened with rage. She'd been funding their entire relationship with our savings. Emma, I want you to listen very carefully, I said, my voice dropping to barely above a whisper. I want you to pack a bag and go to Marcus's place. Today. David, please. I'm filing for divorce. She straightened. And suddenly the tears stopped. The performance was over. If you do that, I'll take half of everything, including this house, your mother's house. Her voice turned cold, businesslike. I know my rights, David, and I know you don't want to lose the only thing she left you. She was right, and she knew it. The house had been in my family for 3 generations. Mom left it to me specifically because she'd never trusted Emma, though she'd been too polite to say so directly. Besides, Emma continued, her confidence growing, Marcus is moving in next week, just temporarily to help with the pregnancy. You can stay in the guest room if it makes you uncomfortable. The guest room. In my own house. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved for 6 years, and realized I was looking at a stranger, someone who could plan this level of betrayal and then demand I subsidize it. Fine, I said quietly. Her eyebrows shot up. She'd expected a fight. Fine. I'll keep paying the bills. You can stay here with Marcus. I'll sleep in the guest room. Relief flooded her face, followed quickly by suspicion. Emma had always been good at reading people, which is probably how she'd managed to live this double life for over a year. Just like that? Just like that? But as she smiled and moved toward me, probably planning some kind of grateful hug, I was already thinking ahead. She wanted to play games with my money, my house, my life. Fine. But I was going to make sure I knew exactly what game we were playing. While she showered, I photographed every financial document in our shared filing cabinet. Bank statements, credit card bills, investment accounts, insurance papers, everything. What I found made my blood run cold. She hadn't just hidden the IVF payments. There were cash advances, mysterious charges to jewelry stores, expensive restaurants I'd never been to, weekend trips that she'd told me were work conferences. The paper trail painted a picture of a relationship that had been far more serious and far more expensive than she'd admitted. But here's what she'd forgotten. The house was mine alone. Mom had been very careful about that, putting it in a trust that protected it from future spouses. Emma had never seen the paperwork. I'd handled all the legal stuff when Mom died, which meant Emma was essentially a tenant who'd been stealing from her landlord. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Emma says you're cool with everything. Thanks for being mature about this, man. Marcus? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smiled for the first time in hours. Marcus had been living in my house on weekends for months. The text thread with Emma confirmed it. Casual messages about leaving my work clothes in the upstairs closet and should I bring more coffee for the machine? Messages that went back to last Christmas. While Emma was pregnant with his baby, Marcus had been sleeping in my bed, using my shower, eating food I paid for. The level of disrespect was breathtaking. David, Emma called from upstairs. Can you help Marcus bring his stuff in? I walked to the front window and watched a man I barely recognized from Emma's office Christmas parties unloading a pickup truck full of furniture. My furniture was apparently being replaced. Where exactly is all this going? I asked when I met them in the driveway. The master bedroom needs to be set up properly for the baby, Emma explained, not meeting my eyes. And Marcus needs space for his things. And where am I supposed to put my things? Marcus straightened up from the truck bed, a box labeled Marcus Books in his arms. He was smaller than I'd expected, maybe 5 8 to my 6'2", with the kind of soft build that suggested he spent more time at a desk than a gym. Look, David, he said, his tone annoyingly conciliatory. Emma explained the situation. We really appreciate you being so understanding about everything. A lot of guys would have gone crazy. Understanding. That's what they were calling it. We've set up the guest room really nicely for you, Emma added quickly. New sheets, a reading lamp, that chair you like from the den. They'd moved my belongings without asking. I walked into the house and confirmed my suspicions. My clothes were hanging in the guest room closet, my books stacked on a small nightstand, my reading chair crammed into a corner. The master bedroom had been transformed. Marcus's cologne hung heavy in the air, mixing with Emma's usual lavender perfume into something that made my stomach turn. His clothes filled half the walk-in closet. His electric razor sat on my bathroom counter. "This is temporary, right?" I asked when I found them arranging baby furniture that I apparently hadn't been consulted about purchasing. "Of course," Emma said quickly. "Just until after the baby comes and we figure everything out." Marcus didn't look up from the crib he was assembling. "Well, we'll see how it goes. Emma might need extra help for a while after the birth. First-time mom and all." The casual presumption in his voice made my jaw clench. That evening, Emma presented me with a handwritten list over dinner, Chinese takeout that I'd been instructed to pick up and pay for. "These are the things we'll need over the next few months," she said, sliding the paper across the table. I scanned the list. Nursery renovation, $8,000. Upgraded health insurance, $400/month. Organic prenatal vitamins, $200/month. Baby gear, $5,000. Maternity clothes, $1,500. "This is over $15,000, I said. "You're the one with the stable job," Marcus pointed out, stabbing at his low mane. "Emma can't work much longer, and I'm between opportunities right now." Between opportunities. That was one way to put unemployment. "Besides," Emma added, her voice taking on that pleading tone again, "you said you'd support us through this." From upstairs came the sound of their laughter, Emma's bright giggle mixing with Marcus's deeper chuckle as they settled into their new shared bedroom. The sound drifted down through the floorboards like a knife twisting in my chest. But while they were getting comfortable, I was getting busy. I'd spent the last 3 days researching tenant rights and property law. What I'd learned was fascinating. When someone lives in your property without a lease, they become what's called a tenant at will. But they still have to pay rent, and you can still charge market rates. I'd also been documenting everything. Photos of Marcus's belongings throughout the house, screenshots of text messages, recordings of their casual demands for money. My phone had a voice memo app that I'd become very familiar with. The best part? I'd found comparable rental listings in our neighborhood. A 3-bedroom house like ours was going for $2,500 per month. Per person, that was $1,250 for Emma and $1,250 for Marcus. But since they were sharing the master bedroom, I could justify charging them each the full amount for their individual tenancy rights. Friday morning, I printed out 2 identical documents: residential rental agreements for Emma Richardson and Marcus Webb, each for $2,500 per month plus utilities, with a $5,000 security deposit due immediately. "I'll be back around 3, I told Emma as she sat at the kitchen island scrolling through baby registry websites on my laptop. "Where are you going?" "Work stuff. Oh, and Emma, make sure Marcus is here when I get back. We need to discuss some house business." When I returned that afternoon, I found them both in the living room, surrounded by baby shower invitations that Emma was addressing by hand. "Perfect timing," I said, setting my briefcase on the coffee table. "I have something for both of you." I pulled out the rental agreements and handed one to each of them. "What's this?" Marcus asked, frowning at the paperwork. "Your lease agreement. Both of yours, actually." Emma's face went pale as she read. "David, what are you doing?" "I'm being your landlord," I said simply. "Since you're both living in my house, eating my food, using my utilities, it's only fair that you pay market rate for the privilege." "This says $5,000, Marcus sputtered. $2,500 each, plus your share of utilities. Water, electric, gas, internet, cable. Figure another $300 per month each. Oh, and the security deposits are due today." Emma's hands were shaking as she held the contract. "David, this is insane. I'm your wife." "You're also my tenant, and Marcus is my tenant's boyfriend. Both of you need to sign these agreements or find somewhere else to live." "You can't just..." Actually, I can. The house is in my name alone, inherited through a family trust. I've checked with 3 different lawyers. You have 2 choices. Sign the leases and pay the rent, or move out by Sunday. Marcus set his copy down and leaned back on the couch. My couch, which he'd been treating like his own for months. This is harassment, man. Emma's pregnant. You can't just throw a pregnant woman out on the street. I'm not throwing anyone out. I'm offering very reasonable rental terms for a house in this neighborhood. You should see what my neighbors charge. The silence stretched between us. Emma looked like she was going to cry, while Marcus looked like he was calculating whether he could find somewhere else to live for less money. We can't afford this, Emma finally said. Then I guess you'll need to make some decisions about your living situation. I picked up my briefcase and headed for the stairs, then paused at the bottom step. Oh, and I'm having a dinner party tomorrow night. Some friends want to meet Marcus and celebrate Emma's pregnancy. Hope that's okay with my tenants. The dinner party was actually Emma's baby shower, which I'd been paying for before this conversation. Now it was going to serve a different purpose entirely. Emma's mother, Patricia, had always disliked me. I'd known that for years, but I'd attributed it to normal mother-in-law protectiveness. Turns out, it was something much more calculated. David, dear, could we speak privately? Patricia's voice carried that syrupy sweetness she used when she wanted something. The baby shower was in full swing around us. My friends, Emma's co-workers, neighbors who'd known my family for decades. We stepped into my home office, and Patricia carefully closed the door behind us. I think we need to discuss this landlord nonsense, she said, dropping the sweet tone entirely. It's not nonsense. It's a legal arrangement between property owner and tenants. She reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, scrolling to a text thread that made my blood freeze. Emma's been keeping me informed about your behavior, she said, turning the screen toward me. The messages were between Patricia and Emma, going back weeks. Patricia, remember, document everything he says. We need evidence of financial abuse. Emma, he's getting suspicious about the money. Should I back off? Patricia, no, keep pushing. The more controlling he gets, the better it looks for court. Emma, what if he really tries to kick us out? Patricia, he won't. But if he does, we'll claim domestic abuse, throwing out a pregnant woman. Any judge will crucify him. My hands trembled as I read message after message detailing their plan to manipulate me, steal from me, and then destroy me in court when I finally fought back. You've been coaching her, I said, my voice barely controlled. I've been protecting my daughter from a vindictive husband who can't handle her finding real love. I crumpled the edge of the phone screen printout in my fist, the paper making a sharp crackling sound. Emma made her choices. I'm just refusing to subsidize them. Patricia's smile was razor sharp. Well, you'll be subsidizing a lot more than her living expenses if you keep this up. Emma's already filed a police report about your harassment. Financial abuse during pregnancy is taken very seriously by the courts. My stomach dropped. What police report? The rental agreement stunt, demanding impossible amounts of money, threatening to evict a pregnant woman. It's all documented now. Marcus backs up every word. Marcus, who's been stealing from me for months. Marcus, who's been supporting a pregnant woman while her husband emotionally abuses her. The office suddenly felt too small, too hot. I could hear laughter from the party in the next room. People celebrating a pregnancy that was built on lies, funded by theft, and now being weaponized against me. What do you want, Patricia? Drop the Landlord Act. Stop harassing them about money. Let Emma and Marcus live in peace until they can figure out their next steps. In exchange, maybe Emma doesn't pursue the domestic abuse angle. And if I don't? Then you'll learn what it's like to be a single man with a domestic violence record trying to rebuild his life. 20 minutes later, after Patricia had rejoined the party with a satisfied smile, I heard sirens approaching. 2 police officers knocked on my front door while Emma's baby shower guests watched in stunned silence. "David Richardson, we need to ask you some questions about a harassment complaint." Emma stood behind the officers, her hand on her belly, tears streaming down her face in a performance worthy of an Oscar. Marcus had his arm around her shoulders, playing the protective boyfriend perfectly. "He's been threatening us," Emma told the officers, her voice shaking. "Demanding thousands of dollars, saying he'll throw us out on the street. I'm 6 months pregnant, and he knows I can't afford to live anywhere else." The younger officer took notes while his partner looked around our foyer, taking in the obvious wealth of the house, the well-dressed party guests, the elaborate baby shower decorations. "Sir, we're going to need you to come down to the station for questioning," the older officer said, as they led me out in handcuffs. Just as a precaution, they assured me. I saw my neighbors watching from their windows. 30 years of living in this community. And now they'd always remember me as the man who got arrested at his wife's baby shower. The station smelled like stale coffee and industrial disinfectant. I sat in an interview room for 2 hours before my lawyer arrived. Thank God I'd had the foresight to put James Morrison on retainer after the first rental agreement conversation. "They can't hold you," James said after reviewing the complaint. "Financial disputes between spouses aren't criminal matters, even if she's trying to frame it as domestic abuse. But the arrest is public record." "Yes. And Emma's lawyer is probably already drafting divorce papers. She's creating a narrative where you're the abusive husband and she's the victimized pregnant woman." James spread out a folder of documents on the metal table between us. "But here's what's interesting, David. While you were in here, I did some research. Your wife has been very busy. She filed for divorce this morning, citing emotional and financial abuse. She's requesting temporary alimony, exclusive use of the marital home, and emergency spousal support. She can't get the house. It's protected by the trust. She can't get ownership, but she can potentially get exclusive occupancy during the divorce proceedings, especially if the court believes you're using the home as a weapon against a pregnant woman." My head was spinning. In less than 24 hours, I'd gone from property owner to criminal suspect to divorce defendant. "There's more," James continued. "Marcus Webb is listed as Emma's emotional support person due to her high-risk pregnancy. The court filing claims he needs to remain in the home for her mental and physical health." "This is insane." "This is strategic. But David," James smiled for the first time since arriving, "they've made some very big mistakes." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a digital recorder. "Tell me you've been documenting everything." James Morrison had been my mother's lawyer for 30 years before becoming mine, and he'd kept secrets I'd forgotten about. Sitting in his oak-paneled office the next morning, surrounded by the smell of old leather and fresh coffee, he spread out documents that changed everything. "Your mother was more careful than you realized," he said, sliding a thick folder across his desk. "When she set up the trust for the house, she also established a secondary trust, one that you weren't supposed to access until you were 40, or until you needed it to protect yourself from predators." The fountain pen felt heavy in my hand as I signed papers that I should have signed years ago. "How much?" $2.3 million, earning an average of 8% annually since your mother's death. She called it her fortune hunter insurance policy. My mother had always been paranoid about women marrying me for money. I'd thought it was just old-fashioned protectiveness. Turns out it was sophisticated financial planning. "Emma doesn't know?" "Emma knows about the house because she lived in it. She has no idea about any of the investment properties, the stock portfolio, or this trust fund. As far as she's concerned, you're a middle manager who inherited a nice house." While James gathered the paperwork, I stared out his window at the downtown skyline. My regular job at Peterson Construction had been exactly that. regular. I'd worked there for appearances, to maintain the illusion of being a normal guy with a normal income, while my real wealth grew quietly in the background. "There's more you should know," James continued, pulling out another set of keys. "Your mother's estate included 6 rental properties throughout the city. They're all managed by Richmond Property Group under the trust's name. You've been collecting rent on them for 8 years without realizing it." The keys jingled as he handed them over, each one tagged with an address I didn't recognize. "Where did you think the money in your personal account was coming from?" I'd honestly never thought about it much. The amounts were reasonable. $3,000 here, $4,500 there. I'd assumed they were bonuses or investment returns that James managed for me. It had never occurred to me to ask for details. "The house Emma's been living in? It's actually your smallest, least valuable property. You own a downtown loft worth $800,000, a lakefront cottage worth $1.2 million, and 4 other residential properties worth between $400,000 and $600,000 each." The magnitude of what my mother had built and what I'd inherited was staggering. Emma had been fighting for scraps while I owned a real estate empire. "Why didn't you tell me all this before?" James leaned back in his chair, studying me over his reading glasses. "Because your mother made me promise to wait. She said you needed to learn who really loved you for yourself before you learned who might love you for your money. Emma has shown you exactly who she is." A knock on the office door interrupted us. James's secretary entered with a manila envelope that smelled like copy machine toner. "The investigator's report you requested," she said, setting it on the desk. While James had been protecting my financial secrets, I'd hired someone to look into Marcus's. What I found inside that envelope made Emma's betrayal look almost innocent by comparison. Marcus Webb wasn't just Emma's lover, he was a professional con artist. The photographs showed him with a brunette woman and 2 young children outside a house in the suburbs. According to the report, Jennifer Webb believed her husband was working overseas on military contracts. She'd been raising their kids alone for 2 years, while Marcus lived his double life with Emma. But Jennifer wasn't his only victim. The investigator had found evidence of at least 3 other women Marcus had been dating seriously over the past 5 years. Each one thought she was his only real love. Each one had been financially supporting him. Emma's IVF baby would be Marcus's 3rd affair child. "Jesus," I muttered, flipping through photos of Marcus at different women's homes, wearing different personas like costumes. "Gets better," James said dryly. "Or worse, depending on your perspective. Mr. Webb has been wanted by the police in 2 states for fraud and identity theft. The military contract story, complete fiction. He's never served a day in his life." The folder contained copies of police reports, court documents, and restraining orders filed by Marcus's previous victims. He was, quite literally, a career criminal who specialized in targeting lonely women with money. "Emma doesn't know any of this?" "According to your investigator, Emma genuinely believes Marcus is divorced and working in private security. She has no idea he's married, no idea about the other women, and definitely no idea about the criminal history." My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Need to talk. Marcus is acting strange and I'm scared." For a moment I felt a flicker of the old protectiveness. Then I remembered the police report, the lies, the calculated betrayal. "The harassment charges hearing is tomorrow," James reminded me. "But given what we now know about Mr. Webb, I think we can turn this whole situation around." "How?" James smiled the way a shark smiles before feeding time. "We're going to give Emma exactly what she asked for, her day in court." The family court hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Wednesday. Emma sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, wearing a maternity dress that emphasized her belly and an expression of wounded innocence. Marcus sat behind her in the gallery, playing the supportive partner perfectly. I sat at the defendant's table with James, watching Judge Caroline Hartwell review the harassment complaint. Her sharp eyes moved between Emma's obvious pregnancy and my apparently threatening presence. Mrs. Richardson, Judge Hartwell began, please explain to the court why you believe your husband has been harassing you. Emma's voice trembled as she spoke, a masterful performance of vulnerability. Your Honor, my husband discovered that I'm in love with someone else and carrying his child. Instead of handling it like an adult, David has been using our home and his financial control to punish me. He's demanding thousands of dollars in rent money that he knows I can't afford, threatening to evict me while I'm 6 months pregnant. Her lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Catherine Vance, stood to address the court. Your Honor, Mrs. Richardson is the victim of classic financial abuse. Her husband is using his economic power to control and intimidate her during one of the most vulnerable times in a woman's life. Judge Hartwell nodded sympathetically, then turned to James. Mr. Morrison, how does your client respond to these allegations? James stood slowly, the way he did when he was about to destroy someone's life with paperwork. Your Honor, before we address the harassment allegations, I'd like to present some evidence about the true nature of this situation. He gestured to his assistant, who began distributing copies of my financial documents to the court. Mrs. Richardson claims she's being financially abused by a controlling husband. In reality, she's been systematically stealing from a man she had no idea was a millionaire. Emma's sharp intake of breath was audible throughout the courtroom. Her lawyer fumbled with the papers, clearly seeing the investment portfolio and property list for the first time. Mr. Richardson owns real estate worth over $8 million and has liquid assets exceeding $2 million. His wife knew none of this because he was living modestly on his regular salary while his inherited wealth grew in managed trusts. Judge Hartwell's eyebrows climbed toward her hairline as she reviewed the documents. Mrs. Richardson has been stealing money from joint accounts to fund fertility treatments, luxury purchases, and living expenses for her lover, money she believed represented her husband's entire financial resources. Mr. Richardson, meanwhile, has been quietly supporting them both out of generosity, not obligation. Emma was staring at the financial papers like they were written in a foreign language. Marcus, I noticed, had gone very pale. Now, James continued, let's discuss the harassment allegations. He nodded to his assistant again, who began setting up a small speaker system. Your Honor, I'd like to play some recordings that Mr. Richardson made to document his wife's demands. Emma's voice filled the courtroom, crystal clear. You're the one with the stable job. You need to pay for everything since Marcus can't work right now. Then, Marcus. She can't just throw that away because you're jealous. Be a man and support your wife. Then Emma again. If you try to divorce me, I'll take half of everything, including this house. Judge Hartwell listened to 10 minutes of recordings that painted a very different picture than the one Emma had presented. When the audio stopped, the courtroom was silent except for the sound of Emma crying. Real tears this time, not performed ones. Your Honor, James said quietly. Mr. Richardson never harassed his wife. He simply stopped allowing himself to be stolen from. Catherine Vance tried to salvage the situation. Your Honor, regardless of Mr. Richardson's financial status, threatening to evict a pregnant woman is well within his rights as a property owner, Judge Hartwell interrupted, especially when that pregnant woman has been committing theft and fraud. But James wasn't finished. He signaled his assistant once more, and she handed him the manila envelope. Your Honor, there's one more thing the court should know about this situation. Mrs. Richardson believes she's in love with a man named Marcus Webb. I'd like to present evidence about who Mr. Webb really is. The photos spread across the evidence table like a life-destroying puzzle. Marcus with his real wife. Marcus with his children. Marcus with 3 other women he'd been stringing along. Mr. Webb is married with 2 children. His wife, Jennifer Webb, believes he's working overseas. He's been running this same con on at least 4 women simultaneously, including Mrs. Richardson. Emma's head snapped toward Marcus, her face a mask of horror. What is this? Marcus was already moving toward the courtroom exit, but James wasn't done. Your Honor, Mr. Webb is also wanted in connection with fraud charges in Tennessee and Georgia. He's a career criminal who specializes in targeting vulnerable women. As if summoned by dramatic timing, the courtroom doors opened to admit a brunette woman carrying a toddler with a young boy clinging to her leg. Marcus? The woman called out, her voice echoing in the suddenly silent room. Marcus, what the hell is going on? Jennifer Webb had received a call from James's investigator that morning, informing her where her husband really was and what he'd really been doing. She'd driven 4 hours to see for herself. Who is that woman? Jennifer demanded, pointing at Emma. And why is she pregnant? Emma gripped the edge of her table, looking like she might faint. The baby she was carrying, the baby she'd sacrificed her marriage for, had been just another lie in Marcus's collection of lies. Mrs. Webb, Judge Hartwell said firmly, I'm going to need you to wait outside while we finish these proceedings. But the damage was done. Marcus had abandoned his supportive partner act and was pushing past Jennifer toward the exit. He paused only long enough to hiss at Emma. You're on your own now. And then he was gone, leaving Emma alone at the plaintiff's table, 8 months pregnant with a con man's baby, facing theft charges, and a husband who'd just been revealed as secretly wealthy. Judge Hartwell reviewed her notes for a long moment before speaking. Mrs. Richardson, I'm dismissing the harassment complaint. Additionally, I'm ordering you to make immediate restitution for the unauthorized use of marital funds, which I calculate at approximately $47,000. Emma's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Hartwell cut her off. Furthermore, Mrs. Richardson, you have 30 days to vacate the marital home. Mr. Richardson has shown remarkable restraint in allowing you to remain there this long. As we left the courthouse, I could hear Emma sobbing in the parking lot. Jennifer Webb was screaming at Marcus while their children cried. Local news crews, there to cover a different story, had caught wind of the drama and were filming the whole debacle. By evening, a shaky cell phone video of the courthouse confrontation was trending on social media. My quiet neighborhood scandal had become a public spectacle. The rain hit my office windows like bullets that Thursday morning when Emma called. I'd been expecting this conversation for weeks, ever since Marcus disappeared completely, leaving her to face the consequences alone. David, please. Her voice was raw from crying. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, but I need help. I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, listening to the storm outside. Fall was turning into winter, and Emma was 8 months pregnant with nowhere to go. What kind of help? Can I come back home? Just until after the baby comes. I'll sign whatever you want, give up any claim to anything. I can't do this alone. For a moment, I almost said yes. The protective instinct that had made me love her for 6 years was still there, buried under the anger and betrayal. But then I remembered the police report, the planned lies about domestic abuse, the year of systematic theft. Emma, you made your choice. I was confused. Marcus told me you were controlling, that you were keeping me from being happy. He said he loved me, that we'd build a life together. Where is Marcus now? Silence, then. I don't know. He stopped answering my calls after the court hearing. His phone goes straight to voicemail. Of course it did. Marcus Webb was probably already running his con on some new victim in some new city, leaving Emma to raise his child alone. I'm sorry this happened to you, I said, and I meant it. But it's not my responsibility to fix it. David, please, I'm scared. The baby could come any day and I don't have anywhere to go. My mom won't even talk to me after what happened in court." Patricia had apparently been so humiliated by the public revelation of her coaching scheme that she'd disowned Emma entirely. Another consequence Emma hadn't anticipated. "What about the other women?" I asked. "Marcus's other victims? Maybe you could support each other." "They hate me. Jennifer thinks I'm the reason her marriage fell apart. The others won't even take my calls." Through my office window, I could see people hurrying through the rain, their umbrellas bent against the wind. Everyone fighting their own battles, dealing with their own consequences. "There are programs," I said finally. "Women's shelters, maternity assistance, social services. I can give you some numbers." "David, this is your baby too, in a way. We were married when—" "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "This baby has nothing to do with me. You made sure of that when you chose Marcus." I could hear her crying. The sound muffled like she was covering the phone. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to solve her problems like I'd been doing for years. But that part was exactly what had gotten me into this mess. My office door opened and my secretary stepped in, holding a stack of rental applications. My real estate business had exploded since the court hearing. Apparently being the victim of a public betrayal had made me something of a local celebrity, and people trusted me with their properties. "David," Emma's voice was desperate now. "What if I pay you back? All of it. Every penny I took. I'll get a job after the baby comes. I'll work night shifts, whatever it takes." "With what money, Emma? You're unemployed, pregnant, and about to be a single mother. Even if you got a job tomorrow, it would take you years to pay back $47,000. "Then what am I supposed to do?" The texture of the eviction notice felt rough under my fingers as I pulled it from my desk drawer. I'd had it prepared weeks ago, waiting for this exact conversation. "You're supposed to deal with the consequences of your choices." Before she could respond, there was another sound on the line, shouting in the background, then a man's voice I didn't recognize. "Emma? Emma, are you okay?" "David, I have to go. Something's happening." The line went dead. 20 minutes later, Marcus appeared at my office door. He looked terrible. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, wearing the same clothes he'd fled the courthouse in. But there was still that arrogant tilt to his chin that I remembered from our kitchen confrontations. "We need to talk," he announced, pushing past my secretary. "No, we don't." "Yes, we do." He sat down uninvited, spreading his hands on my desk like he was trying to claim territory. "Look, I know you're pissed about everything that happened, but you need to step up now." The audacity was breathtaking. "Step up? Emma's about to have a baby. My baby, yeah, but still. She needs support, and you're the only one with money." I leaned back in my chair, studying this man who'd stolen my wife, my money, and apparently my sanity. "Where have you been for the past 3 weeks, Marcus?" "Handling some business. Look, that doesn't matter now. What matters is that baby needs a father figure, and Emma needs help. You can afford it." "I can afford a lot of things. That doesn't mean I'm obligated to pay for them." Marcus's reasonable tone cracked slightly. "Come on, man. Be the bigger person here. You've got millions of dollars. What's a few thousand a month to make sure a kid has a decent life?" "Not my kid. Not my problem." "But Emma was your wife." "Emma was also a thief and a liar, and you're a wanted criminal." That hit home. Marcus's face went pale, and for the first time he looked genuinely scared. "I don't know what you think you know." "I know Jennifer's filed for divorce and custody. I know the Tennessee fraud charges are still active. I know you've got about 3 different identities and at least 5 victims across 4 states. Marcus stood up abruptly, knocking over the chair. "You can't prove any of that." "I don't have to prove it. The police will handle that part when they catch up with you." He leaned across my desk, and I caught a whiff of desperation sweat mixed with stale cologne. If you don't help Emma, I'll make sure everyone in this town knows what kind of man you really are. Abandoning a pregnant woman, throwing her out on the street. I stood up slowly, using my height advantage to make him back down. Marcus, let me explain something to you. This town already knows exactly what kind of man I am. They saw the court hearing. They heard the recordings. They know who the victim is in this story. My phone buzzed with a text, and I glanced down to see a message from an unknown number. Emma in labor, hospital. You might want to get going, I said, showing him the message. Sounds like you're about to become a father again. Marcus read the text over my shoulder, and his face went white. Again? Oh, that's right. Emma doesn't know about your other kids, does she? He was already moving toward the door, muttering something about needing to think. As he reached the exit, I called after him. Marcus, when you get to the hospital, make sure to give them your real name, for the birth certificate. He disappeared into the hallway without looking back. 2 hours later, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized. The hospital. Mr. Richardson? This is Dr. Sarah Chen at Mercy General. Your wife Emma has given birth to a healthy baby boy. She's asking for you. Emma's not my wife anymore. We're divorced. Oh, She said to tell you that she needs you, that there's no one else. I stared out my office window at the rain, which had finally stopped. The sun was trying to break through the clouds, casting everything in that strange, clean light that comes after storms. Doctor, Emma made her choices. She chose Marcus over me, chose lies over truth, chose to steal rather than communicate. Those choices have consequences. Sir, she's just given birth. She's alone and scared. Then I suggest you call social services. There are programs designed to help women in her situation. I hung up and reached into my desk drawer, pulling out the business cards I'd researched weeks ago. Women's shelters, maternity assistance programs, social services, employment agencies for new mothers. I put them all in an envelope and wrote Emma's name on the front. Then I called a courier service. I need something delivered to Mercy General Hospital, I said. Room 314, Emma Richardson. When the courier asked if there was a message, I thought for a long moment. Tell her this is everything she needs to build the life she chose. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my new downtown loft, jazz playing softly from speakers hidden in the walls. The space is all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows. Nothing like the family home where Emma and I built our life together. That house sold within a week of listing. Apparently, scandal increases property values when the story has a clear villain and victim. The silk sheets on my bed are charcoal gray, chosen by someone who actually understands my taste, rather than someone trying to change it. Sarah, my girlfriend of 3 months, is a commercial real estate investor with her own portfolio and her own ambitions. When I told her about Emma and Marcus on our second date, she listened thoughtfully and then said, Well, at least you learned who people really are before you had kids with the wrong person. Emma and the baby live in subsidized housing across town. I know this because her mother, Patricia, sends me guilt trip texts every few weeks that I delete without reading. The previews tell me everything I need to know. Struggling? Baby needs? How can you sleep at night? I sleep very well, actually, probably because I'm not supporting 3 people on lies anymore. Marcus pays court-ordered child support when he remembers to, which is about half the time. His marriage to Jennifer survived, barely. But he lost his job when his employer discovered the fraud charges. He works construction now, real construction, making an honest living for the first time in years. Sometimes I wonder if fatherhood and public humiliation finally scared him straight, but I don't wonder about it very often. The scent of fresh paint drifts through my loft from the renovation project I'm overseeing 2 floors down. My real estate business has tripled since the courthouse incident. Apparently, people want to work with someone who demonstrates clear boundaries and doesn't tolerate being stolen from. Who knew that self-respect was a marketable business trait? My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. Dinner at 7? Found a new place downtown. Before I can reply, another message comes through from a number I haven't seen in months. Emma. David, I know you probably won't read this, but I wanted you to know that I'm doing okay. The baby is healthy. I have a job at a daycare center. I'm learning to budget and be responsible. I'm sorry for everything I did to you. You didn't deserve any of it. I stare at the message for a long moment, then delete it without responding. Not out of cruelty, but out of clarity. Emma's journey toward responsibility is hers to take, and my validation isn't required for her healing. The most unexpected justice came last month when Patricia called me, actually called, not texted, to apologize. I was wrong, she said without preamble. I pushed Emma to manipulate you because I thought you were just another man trying to control my daughter. I didn't realize she was the one doing the controlling. Thank you for saying that. She lost everything, David. Her marriage, her home, her security. I know I helped her lose it, and I'm sorry. She didn't lose everything, Patricia. She lost the things she was stealing. What she has now, the apartment, the job, the baby, those are hers. She earned them. There was a long pause. You really aren't going to help her, are you? I already helped her. I gave her the opportunity to learn who she really is when she can't rely on someone else to solve her problems. Now, as evening settles over the city, I'm getting ready for dinner with Sarah. She knows about my real estate empire, my trust fund, my complicated past. She also pays for her own meals, manages her own investments, and has never once suggested that my money could solve her problems. In the bathroom mirror, I look like a different person than I was a year ago. Not because I've changed physically, but because I've learned something crucial. Generosity without boundaries becomes exploitation. Love without accountability becomes abuse. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for someone is refuse to rescue them from the consequences of their choices. My phone buzzes one final time. Sarah again. Can't wait to see you. I smile as I type back. On my way. The downtown lights are starting to twinkle as I lock my loft and head for the elevator. Somewhere across town, Emma is probably putting her baby to bed in their small apartment, building a life with the money she earns and the choices she makes. Marcus is probably working late to catch up on missed child support payments. Patricia is probably realizing that protecting your children sometimes means letting them fall. And I'm going to dinner with a woman who chose me for who I am, not what I can provide. Sometimes the best revenge is just refusing to be anyone's victim again. Sometimes justice is just walking away and letting people live with exactly what they chose. Sometimes peace is just the sound of your own footsteps, walking toward a life you actually want.